Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to the Linux Lads. We are the Linux Lads. So I am Shane, as usual.
I am Mike.
And I'm Connor.
And we have a lovely show for you guys today. Fantastic show. Just the best, I think. We've got some news.
It's going to be a great show. I'm telling you, it's going to be a great show.
And it's not going to be fake news. There's going to be some news, which is not fake. And then we'll have a little discussion. So I'll pass it off to you guys. Do you guys want to crack on with some news?
I think the first one that is on the list is Samsung's, don't say that 3 times fast, Samsung's take of Linux is now on DeX, and I believe it's based on 1604, so not quite the latest LTS, which is 1804. And I think it's a beta, it's kind of a work in progress. But the whole idea is that it will be on top of Android, or Samsung's take on Android. So I think it's the Galaxy S9, the very latest version. What you do is it operates just like a normal phone. You have your Samsung UI and everything, and then as soon as you hook it up to a monitor, then that monitor displays just like Ubuntu 1604. Obviously ARM apps, because it'll be running off an ARM based phone. But yeah, it's essentially, the whole idea is this will be your work phone, and then you're out and about, you're out in the field, whatever, you're mobile, and then as soon as you're coming into the office, you're saying, okay, I'm back and I want to do keyboard and mouse productivity stuff. Then just hook your phone up to the keyboard, mouse and monitor, and off you go. Seems to be quite an interesting idea.
I don't know. I mean, it's technologically interesting and it's a geekery plus ultra, but for fuck's sake, how many times is anybody going to use this? Maybe once, twice if you are in a pinch and you're administering your service and suddenly you're somehow mysteriously out and about without computers and you just can't live without another SSH in, then maybe if you get somewhere, plug in a monitor, obviously provided that you are carrying a dongle. People say, well, this is going to be brilliant because you take it with you on site. Well, I don't know, you would have, the people on the site would have to actually verify it as for security first. I don't think that you can just bring your own hardware to many installations and just plug it into their network and start doing stuff. Also, as you said, this is the Galaxy Note 9. I think the S9 and one of the more expensive Samsung tablets. So instead of you coughing up for a nice laptop, you just buy yourself a phone that is worth over €1,000. Not sure. Basically, as you can probably tell, I'm not amused by this.
Yeah, I'm very cynical when it comes to these convergence type stories myself. I've just heard it several times before, and it never really seems to materialize. And we never actually get a viable product that I would actually go out and buy. It's always just a curiosity. It's like, I think we had something similar with the Ubuntu phone. Didn't they say that there was something like that where they would have a full fat x86 desktop environment that was like on the phone, so you docked it and you could basically, your phone was your computer. I mean, I know someday we probably will get to that, but like, I just don't think it's feasible right now, and I just don't think anyone's going to use this.
I think Canonical's take on it was called Convergence, and I think it was around the 1604 days, ironically, considering they're using 1604 now. Well, maybe not ironically, maybe they made quite a bit of progress. They were like 70 or 80% there when they decided to pack it in, and Samsung have picked up from that point. So maybe it is based on 1604 because of that reason. And yeah, so the Ubuntu phone was an interesting concept, but obviously they just didn't have the resources to get it over the final line.
Yeah, but you know, when Canonical abandoned the project, there was still code left behind, and now it's been picked up, and the project actually still lives on, even though it's just a community project and no longer supported by Canonical. But it's still there, and one day maybe we will get a new release. I mean, they actually have had a release recently. It's called UB ports now, I think, and that still live on. If Samsung decides that they are not getting the revenue from this that they were expecting and they exit, then I don't think they are going to release the code. You know, they are not exactly our most prolific open source company.
I think there is something called an open hardware movement that that I believe that organization exists, whether Samsung is part of it or not. Yeah, it's an interesting concept, but if this is successful, I can totally see large enterprise companies just saying, okay, we're buying like 30 of these for software engineers or something like that, because once they do buy in bulk, and once something is compelling, you can just see that they'll start writing the checks. I mean, I believe we're going to talk about it later, but Purism with their Librem 5, they're on their Kickstarter. I think the reason why the Kickstarter kind of had a steady stream of revenue is because apparently Purism in the background were approaching enterprise customers, and apparently the feedback was, okay, if your project reaches a certain amount, let's say $10,000, then we'll step in with a large order, and then that boosted it again. And I think there were certain milestones, so there is a lot of demand for these things where customers were like saying, this is actually quite interesting, yet we're going to buy 100 units or whatever it is.
Yeah, but you see, even if Purism, again, if they left it behind and even when bankrupt, then the enterprise is left with a phone they can install something on. If Samsung just exits it, there's no, you know, basically, I think that for it to be any valuable to anybody, they would have to open source it and create a community. Point. And if they are not doing that, or there is at least so far no indication that they are going to do that, then that thing might just as well be dead already to me.
Yeah, those are good points. It's an interesting concept. It's one to look out for, one to keep an eye on. Yeah, certainly.
Yeah, I think if like I haven't seen any you know, I haven't seen any screenshots of what this will look like, or seen any demos or whatever. So, you know, if I don't know, I'm not really inclined to buy a Samsung device anyway, because I just don't like the device. I had Samsung phones years ago. I swore by them, but they just come with too much bloatware, and they have a bit of a shelf. Yeah, they just have a bit of a shelf life, I've found. I don't know if it's planned obsolescence, most likely. Yeah, I don't know. I'm just not, you know, I hear Samsung and I'm kind of like, boring. But they make nice TVs. but yeah, so I think we'll move on. There's a new release of Deepin out, and boy, does it look sexy. Thoughts?
It does indeed. I mean, I literally almost had an erection when I was looking at the screenshots, because you don't often see a Linux distribution that is not only looking good and polished and well functioning, but just going beyond to basically look beautiful. And obviously this is in the eye of the beholder and everything, but I think when I look at this, it's like by far the best looking distro, at least from the screenshots. And even last year when I used the Deepin for a little while, it was also by far the best looking distro out there, and that includes even KDE Plasma. I just think that the guys who create Deepin, they basically put a lot of effort into making it look so good, and it paid off amazingly.
I'm looking at the article that we have in our discussion notes here, and this will be in the show notes as well. And yeah, the screenshots, it looks absolutely fucking amazing. Like really good design. Your kind of clear glass kind of approach to things, really well designed. I mean, they're essentially doing elementary OS was what I was going to try to stumble through, but yeah, out like beating elementary at their own game, I suppose, what I'm getting at. But certainly looking at the screenshots, this looks absolutely beautiful. And is my understanding, I believe it's mentioned here somewhere in the article, but it's my understanding that this is based off Debian SID, so it's kind of as a rolling release, and it's going to get the very latest backend, your latest kernel, your latest plugins and so on, as well as looking really beautiful.
I don't think it's necessarily rolling. I think they kind of do some tests, base it on the unstable Debian, but they do releases. So basically, because this is like what they call the 15.8, I'm not sure what the version number actually reflects.
That's very good point. Yeah,
maybe they are just snapshots of the current state of Debian. But I think, well, I would say that they do some testing on their own software before they release it, and they will have this for a while with some security backports. As I said, I used Deepin before, and it's one beautiful distro.
Yeah, I really like the dock at the bottom. I'm a big fan of that type of UI element. Because, as much as, us open source geeks don't like Apple for their philosophies, I mean, you can't argue that their UI is great. Like, once you get used, like I use a Mac and work, and once you get used to it and you get into the flow and you get your workflow in order, it's actually quite seamless, and I can't really fault it. So Deepin has the look of that. Like, it definitely borrows a lot from Mac OS from what I'm seeing here.
Yeah, if I was asked by any, let's say, newbie who was coming over from Mac OS or anything to recommend them distro, I would probably go for Deepin rather than Elementary. And that's not a jab at the guys at Elementary. I think they are doing sterling job. But if somebody was like, I actually had a conversation with someone just today about what makes the Apple Mac special for them, and if somebody of that persuasion, so sensitive to the way things look and work and how they are polished, if somebody that sensitive was coming over to Linux, I might recommend Deepin over Elementary, or at least tell them to give it a try, because just even last year when I used it, it was smooth, polished, and like as close to the kind of macOS style of smoothness as possible.
As we're praising it so much, I'm not saying I necessarily hold this position, but I'm just going to throw a devil's advocate bone out for discussion. What about the whole tinfoil hat? It's developed by Chinese people, and the Chinese government are going to be monitoring absolutely everything that you're doing, and that whole argument. I'm just throwing that out for discussion.
Well, I don't know about you, but I'm recording on a Lenovo laptop and with a Motorola, which is also a Lenovo phone in my hand. I think that if the Chinese government was into spying that much, and maybe they are for all we know, then with the access to everybody's hardware and the power they have over the people in their own country, I don't think we would be able to avoid it. So and I think that they would be much more efficiently hiding stuff on the hardware level, as it's been discovered that there was spyware maybe for advertising. Like, do you remember the fish thing from about 3-4 years ago with Lenovo when there was some advertising malware inside the actual firmware of the computer? So no matter what distro or what operating system you ran, you couldn't avoid it. So yeah, I don't think I don't have any evidence, or I've never had any very compelling evidence of there being any spyware, maybe except that one quids up video, but I think they already sorted out the issue. Second, I believe that every government, well, at least every big bully government, wants to spy on people. So I'm pretty sure if the Chinese are trying, if they have deepened there, the Americans may be trying something similar with Fedora. And yeah, I mean, for me, that's not an issue.
Yeah, it wouldn't really concern me too much. If people like to spin up Red Star OS, from North Korea, I mean, like if they like to play around with that, then Deepin shouldn't really be a concern. But like, I mean, obviously we know that China does these things, because wasn't there that huge story a few weeks ago where there was actually like physical bugs in hardware shipped from China?
Allegedly.
Allegedly. I don't think it's ever been proven.
That was actually just impressive, to be honest. Like,
yeah, we're compelled to say allegedly if there's any three-letter agencies who are listening.
Probably.
You mean the three-letter agency known as the Chinese government? Or yeah, that was a Bloomberg story that I don't think... I mean, what it looked like was that either they had wrong information and it was all just a hoax, or it was true, but it's such a massive fuck up on such a big scale that nobody wants to admit it.
Occam's razor.
Yeah.
Speaking of tinfoil hats, I think it's nice or a good point to do a deft segue into Mycroft.
I was just about to say that.
Mycroft, which is an open source, open hardware, I suppose. As in open hardware, as in you can bring your own hardware. You can run it on your desktop. You can run it on a Raspberry Pi, or you can buy pre-built kit directly from Mycroft. Is a voice assistant. So if you're thinking about your Google voice assistant, your Amazon Alexa voice assistant, this is a complete open alternative to it, and I believe they're doing quite well. They're raising a lot of money and they're currently hiring at the moment. So if you're a developer and you want to contribute to it, they have a hiring page, and I believe that will be in the show notes as well, or at least should be.
Well, what fascinates me about this is that, and it's not the only project that went through this route. Basically, some time ago, when the first one came out, the one that looked a bit like the robot from the Horrible Hitchhiker's Guide movie, that when that came out, people were taking the piss out of it. I mean, there's the famous Beans video with Alan Poe, because it was just so bad. And I was thinking to myself, well, that's the end of it. This project is just going to go down, because there's no way they can compete with Alexa or the other Google or Siri things at all. But it looks like I was wrong, and they actually can make it work for themselves. They are raising money, they are hiring people, and they haven't released the Mark II yet, I think. So maybe when they do, it will be just as good as the proprietary competition.
Yeah, I actually messed around with the software before. It's pretty cool. You can just download it from GitHub and install it on anything, really. Like, you can install it on a Raspberry Pi. You could install it just on your desktop PC if you wanted, which is what I did, and I hooked up the microphone and the speakers. And it was actually pretty fun to experiment with. I was like telling it to set timers, and they went off. Like, it worked. It couldn't do much at the time. Like, it couldn't open Spotify or change your lights or anything like that. But well, turn on and off your lights, not change them.
Mycroft changed the light bulb.
Change the light bulb. I can't do that. I'm a box on the table.
I'm afraid I cannot do that, Dave.
Oh yeah.
Oh, hasn't he died recently?
It's getting scary. But I just found it ridiculously fun. Like, it really was. Like, and surprisingly, I could actually see myself using it, like, in a real way. Like for instance, I actually might still do this. Like, I might just get the software, stick it on the Raspberry Pi, get whatever peripherals I need to make it do its thing, and use it like a smart alarm clock. Or, you know, you wake up in the morning, you know, Mycroft, turn off the alarm. You know, Mycroft, what's the weather like today?
Yeah.
Before you go to bed, Mycroft, set an alarm, 8 a.m. in the morning. It can do all that stuff. It's fantastic project. It's one of my favorites at the moment, and one that I'm following. Like, you know, all those random newsletters that you get into your inbox that you just don't read. I read all the Mycroft ones. Like, I love it. I think it's really good.
I mean, at the moment, what they're doing is they're on the Mycroft version 2 or the Mycroft Mark 2, and Mike, you're right, it hasn't been released in terms of hardware yet, but when they first came out with their Kickstarter or Indiegogo crowdfunding campaign, it was either one or the other, I can't remember which one it was, and it may even be still ongoing, but I was actually quite tempted, because the hardware for the Mycroft Mark II actually looks quite compelling. There's a screen on the front of it that is apparently so it'll have an expressive kind of emoticon on the front of it, as in, like, as it's doing its commands, it will do a kind of a smiley face or something like that, just to make it more relatable rather than just looking at a Raspberry Pi or something like that. But it's certainly very compelling, and apparently, like, they've a big kind of microphone array bank inside the hardware, and a pretty decent speaker. So if you actually want the pre-built hardware that it was designed to run the voice assistant, then it actually looks quite compelling.
Yeah, stick some of that Deepin UI on it for absolute pulling power. But I think I think what I've seen that they are on like some $700,000, and they still have got 60 days to go or something like that. So it's strange. They put like that they want to raise anything between, I think, 10,000 and $1.5 million or something like that. So they are definitely doing well, and we are hopefully going to be seeing these devices. And I think if they are successful, because I'm by no means an early adopter or an adventurous person with that kind of money, but if it is successful, I'm definitely going to get one.
What's fantastic about Mycroft, what I really like, is they're really embracing the open source. One of the subsystems they used, the speech to text engine that they used in the software was Google speech to text. But as soon as they could, they transitioned to Mozilla. Mozilla have a similar project. I can't think of the name, but I don't know. We'll find out later. But as soon as they were able, they transitioned to the Mozilla as the speech to text engine, which is commendable.
As you guys were talking, actually, I was on the website and I looked it up. So the Indiegogo campaign is actually still going on. As of this moment, they've raised over $515,000. Is 789% over what they were asking for. So that is really well done. Congratulations to the Mycroft guys.
It's just really good, because it's like it's the first time I've seen, well, not the first time I've seen, but it's the most recent open source project I've seen that could be a real competitor to the big boys. Like, it's a real viable alternative. And as you'll probably hear me say later, like that's kind of my problem with a lot of open source projects. I think they're glorified science experiments. So they're not really, like, which is fine. Like, I'm not saying that's bad, but like, if we want a real, genuine open source alternative, like, I think they're thin on the ground, to be honest.
I think the one advantage that Mycroft has is its open sourceness. So imagine a car manufacturer who doesn't necessarily want to pay Google or Amazon for their assistance and don't want to give them all the data. I'm not sure if this is happening. I have the notion that there might be having this kind of deals as well. I'm not sure, but it would be the one, commercial space where they definitely could raise some funds if they had a deal with a car manufacturer for a car voice assistant, for example.
So apparently, Purism are finally shipping the Librem 5 dev kits, hopefully in December. What do you think?
Well,
True or not?
they might, and it's similar to me. This is similar as the Mycroft project. Basically, they are a bit further. They are a bit more early in the curve. I think that they are late. They've been late with their first laptop when they started. They had their first crowdfunding campaign, but the company survived it, and they were doing well. Then they started this again. They are late, but I think by now, at least to me, the pattern is that it doesn't always look good with these projects, but they somehow get there as long as the company knows what they are doing. And I think Purism, at least to me, seem like they know, because they've been working with hardware. They've been developing hardware for some time. I know a lot of people say that there is no way that they don't know how much of a bite they took, but I think they'll be fine. They might be a year late with it, but they will ship the phone, and and I think it will be successful in the parameters of our little niche.
One thing I will say is it's something that's quite interests me. Whether it's the same thing with the Mycroft project, as in it's open. You can run it on pretty much anything that you want, or in this case, it's hardware. So the hardware will theoretically run whatever you want, whether it's their precompiled official builds that come on the phone, or whether you want to put Android on it, or whether you want to put something else on it. It's your tool. You can mess around with it, and I believe they'll have physical hardware switches for turning off Bluetooth, for turning off Wi-Fi, for whatever. So, and your data aerials and something like that. So if you're concerned with, like, if you have a low data plan with your network provider, and you say, oh, I don't want my phone inadvertently using up data in the background, just switch off the data aerial and just use Wi-Fi in your house or something like that. It's certainly it's very compelling hardware, and I do wish them the best of luck.
Yeah, I believe I don't know if this was the Purism laptop. It was proper tinfoil hat device. Like, I think it had hardware kill switches for everything. Like, it had like a kill switch for the webcam and everything, so you don't have to put sticky tape over your over your webcam, as some people like to do. But yeah. So before we get into the kind of the meat of the episode, have we got any last bits of news to report?
One thing I will mention is the new Apple hardware, which is the new MacBook Air and the new Mac Mini. What it does is it has an ARM chip that they've brought over from their development of the iPhone, and essentially that is what is securing the boot image. And so the rumor was that this will only boot Mac operating system. It won't boot anything else. That mightn't be entirely true, and it might be the case. It's certainly more difficult than the older version of the Mac hardware without this chip, but it may be able to boot alternative operating systems such as Linux after all.
To me, the information about this is quite unclear, but to me, more interesting is the trend line here. People are saying, and again, people, I mean, on other podcasts and in the media, people say that maybe the next or the one after iteration of the MacBooks and Mac Minis and whatnot is going to be fully ARM-based, that they are basically turning all of that into their iPhones. Now, once that happens, forget about using it with Linux or anything apart from what they want. Basically, there has never been a Linux on the iPhone for the reason that with ARM is much more difficult to make your own distro, and if there is no openness from the vendor about the components and about the drivers, it's nigh impossible to create a distribution for that. And so I think this is where the Apple hardware is headed.
On that point of the ARM as Apple's future, has been rumored, because apparently, now, in terms of their long-term ambitions, as in their 5 or 10 year or 20-year plan, apparently they're getting quite frustrated, because I think Intel were kind of resting on their laurels and resting on their production and just saying, okay, we're producing amazing stuff at the moment, we're not really innovating, and apparently Apple were getting quite frustrated about the lack of innovation. So I think they want to bring more of the control in-house, and that's the reason why they've started to develop their own ARM chips, which they have been doing for the iPhone, which was cutting out Samsung, which was their previous manufacturer of the iPhone chips, or the iPhone chips. Yeah, that's correct. Of their iPhone chips, and so Apple would design the chip, but they would send out the manufacturing out to Samsung. They brought that in-house, where they're designing and making their own ARM chips, which is leading to this T2 chip. And now, apparently, as soon as those ARM chips become powerful enough to be desktop ready, then which I believe is their 5-10 year long-term ambition, they're going to transition their desktop and laptop computers over to ARM, which means that they have control more in-house.
Yeah, also it's probably cheaper to have ARM chips than ARM chips are cheaper, and they can then use less power, so you can put them in laptops and have better battery life. And also, let's not forget that Apple are consumer goods company, not and they will give you the full experience. They will sell you something that was meant to work a certain way, and the same way. You wouldn't try to reprogram your fridge. They don't expect you to reprogram your Apple MacBook, or not anymore. It might have been a nice platform for people who like to tinker once upon a time, but right now it's an appliance, and they take it as such and sell it to you as such. So I don't think they would be happiest if they could even kick out Windows out of their ecosystems as well.
And this just occurred to me as the discussion was going on. Apple are not the only people who this is their long-term ambition. I believe Microsoft have been in talks with Qualcomm as well, of producing ARM-based laptops. I mean, there was the Windows RT, so they have been dipping their toe in it, but I think it never really got up to that stage. But apparently, with their talks with Qualcomm and the whole Snapdragon processor, I think maybe not the next version, or even the version after that, but I think one or two versions down the line will be powerful enough to run a full desktop operating system, or maybe a desktop operating system that's kind of been slimmed down a bit, but is certainly more resource intensive than a mobile operating system.
Well, and on the Linux side of things, obviously, ARM are trying very, very hard to conquer the server room with their power-efficient multi-core processors, and I believe they will get there. So what the fuck is Intel going to do? I don't know.
Or it's not just Intel. I mean, AMD, which is the darling of you go get them, the kind of the underdog of both in. Like, they're taking the fight to Intel, and they're also taking the fight to Nvidia, as in they're the underdog in both of those areas. A lot of Linux people saying, yeah, we're the underdog and we're Team Red and we're going to, yeah. I mean, if ARM is the future, then AMD are fucked as well.
Unless they all start making ARM chips, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, yeah, ARM is an architecture, and ARM themselves don't actually do any manufacturing. What they do is they make reference designs, and then they rely on other people to make for example, Qualcomm with their Snapdragon, Samsung with their Exynos processor, and so on and so forth. What they do is they take the reference design and they make their own tweaks to it and customizations to it, and then they fabricate it themselves. So I believe ARM themselves actually technically do manufacture, but it's in very low batches. It's kind of, this is what the architecture looks like, guys, and they like will make maybe 100 units of that architecture. Certainly nothing at any volume or scale, but they're mainly reference design. It was ARM's responsibility.
So, I believe what we're talking about today is what's stopping us from adopting alternatives to mainstream products. So, what's basically stopping us from moving to everything open source, doing everything the RMS way? Maybe not quite, but you guys, what do you guys think? Well, first of all, maybe like, what do you guys think would be examples of things that you could move to that are alternatives?
Well, definitely, I could think of map applications. I'm already trying to use OpenStreetMap wherever I go. That's one of the easier ones because it works quite well. And email, I've moved away from Gmail a long time ago. Then you have all of these services that it's pretty much a personal choice. So that's your mapping application. That's your even things like Dropbox that you can swap for pCloud, or you can even run Nextcloud instance. That's one thing. I see the biggest problem is in the second kind of class of services, which is social networks, where I believe we should all move to Mastodon. But then again, I'm a really shitty user of social networks. I don't basically like talking to people. But those are the most difficult because you need people on a social network for them to make sense. And since like at least 52% of people are constantly dumb, or at least it's a constant 52% of population of mankind are dumb and they like using things like Facebook and voting for weird things, then I believe that is a very difficult thing to do to get on there. I think that we should try. So the projects that are trying to come up with open source networks, they are doing a very good job of it, and I think they should try their bestest to be able to connect to things like Facebook so that you can cross post and react. And I know that Facebook's and Twitter are bastards and they don't want this to be done, but it's a cannon and armor kind of situation. But still, if we could stay on the safe side in our nice Mastodon kind of or diaspora place and be able to still communicate with the people who are using Facebook, that would be possibly the best out of the bad situation.
I'm inclined to agree with most of the points that you were raising there. It's very good to have alternatives, and again, it's the critical mass thing of, well, I'm not going to move away from Facebook because none of my friends are on this other thing that you're proposing. Is that whole thing is the whole chicken and egg catch-22, whatever the way you want to say it is. All my friends are on Facebook, and then why do I want to move to something else? But I have checked out diaspora in the past, and not really for me. And I have checked out Mastodon, which is actually slightly more compelling because Mastodon is essentially just open Twitter. So if you're familiar with Twitter, it's very simple transition over to Mastodon. The UI and the way you interact with things is pretty much the exact same thing as Twitter. But yeah, if you can just say, yeah, I'm exclusively on Mastodon, and if you have a little checkbox to say, I'm posting this to my Mastodon followers. This other thing, whether it's a photo of your dog or whatever you want to do, and you say checkbox, I'm also posting this to my Facebook friends as well, where you can pick and choose. But that whole cross-platform posting would certainly be compelling.
Yeah, I mean, you guys know that I have some unpopular opinions on open social networks. As far as I'm concerned, like it's kind of like it's not really making progress to just create an open social network that's essentially just the same thing as Facebook or the same thing as Twitter, and just slap an open label on it. Like I think where the efforts should be put into creating kind of a new system, because the benefit of our little world is that people are innovative. People tend to think creatively. People tend to be a bit more, ready to roll up the sleeves and make things work. So I think that what we should be chasing is a completely new way of looking at social networking, and something that's a lot less open to abuse, a lot more privacy focused, a lot more secure. With like having these big monolithic companies and these like limiting software stacks that are handling our personal data. I just don't think it's the way to go anymore. I think we need to start looking into things that are more portable. I heard a great example, actually. It's a simplified example. It was actually a lad on the Telegram group mentioned this. He said, like, I believe it was Ian. Shout out to you, Ian. He said, he said it was like you have an email client which hooks up to your mail server, but you can change your mail client no matter what. Like, it's still just email. And it doesn't really change no matter what email client you use. You're still sending and receiving an email. It's the exact same thing. And I know it's not, it's a very simplistic kind of analogy, but it makes sense to me. Like, I think that's the direction it needs to go in. Social networking and your identity online and your digital identity needs to become a lot more, I don't know, it just needs to be a lot more robust. And we need to stop relying on, Mastodon or Diaspora or Facebook. Instead it's just, this is my online ID, and it's just a universally accepted thing.
But then what you are saying is that there needs to be a protocol, like email is a protocol, a specification to which people who make email clients, by which they abide. Do you think that it is ever possible that Facebook, in their absolute arrogance, is going to say, "Oh yeah, hold on, we should be a bit more open. Let us subscribe to this"?
Oh, hell no!
No. So, you are never gonna get the people out of Facebook. Like, no, they would have to literally start killing children. Like, that's
maybe not even then. Like, maybe people.
Yeah, I know.
Like, how am I going to talk to my friends though?
Yeah, exactly.
The Zucker bot is never going to agree to that.
So if you can't have that, wouldn't it be like the second? I said the best out of the bad situation, because this is all fucked up. Like, there's 2 or 3 companies that hold all the humanity by the balls, and us in this part of the world, at least I can just say, well, I don't really want to be on Facebook, and I don't have to. But there are some parts of the world where Facebook equals internet, or internet actually equals Facebook, where basically that's it. So how do you take the dominance and shatter it and make the people move to something more open to create? I think that the only way is for us to connect to it with something that might be better, and slowly catch people. When maybe the Zuckerberg empire is gonna fall apart for some reason or other, and we might be ready with something new. But I don't think there is gonna be that. I don't think you can just come up with a replacement and shift the population from one massive silo to something better.
I believe, for reference, it was things like India, Bangladesh, and places like that, where there's not a lot of internet adoption, and Facebook were like, "We'll provide you with free internet." Oh, by the way, our webpage is the first thing that you see, and we're going to heavily encourage you to, like, if you want to do shopping, it's like the shopping will be channeled through Facebook and that kind of thing. So I believe that was what Mike was referring when you're talking about to them. It's like Facebook is the internet.
Yeah, and it's been seen during the 2016 election and the Brexit referendum and many of other things, that Facebook are basically just so fucked up that any kind of disinformation with some power behind it can get through. Now, what are you going to do in a situation where the whole state or the whole civilization, the whole culture basically just gets their news from Facebook, and what's on Facebook, that's the only news they have? I think the only way to get people out of that enchanted circle is to hack into Facebook from something but more free, connect to it, drop the hooks. But I'm trying to come up with pirate metaphors, and it's not working. But basically, I think you would have to basically penetrate that Facebook ecosystem they have to say, well, whatever you are seeing here, that's not true. This never happened. This is, well, fake news, obviously, and you can only do that if you can connect to it, but you should be able to stay outside of the Facebook ecosystem, because then you are not then they are not controlling your content. So we should basically be able to hack the fucking thing.
Yeah, it reminds me of you know that scene. Obviously, it's a heavily dramatized film, and it probably doesn't tell the true story. But like The Social Network, when you know Mark Zuckerberg has that eureka moment, and he's like, oh, like people, you know, it's college, people want to fuck each other, so like they have they want to know people's relationship status. You know, are they dating? You know, that decides everything that they do in college. That's like true or not. That's actually quite true. Like that's how you get people involved. And I'm not saying particularly like sex. I'm just saying like people don't care about the privacy issues. People generally don't care about the you know the political things or the, you know, the highfalutin ideas that we have. They just want something where they can see pictures of their friends, or they can perv on that girl they like, her photos from the beach or whatever. they want to do human things on these networks. So that's how you get people onto these networks. Like it's like we have like we're in this world, so we understand all this stuff a little bit, you know, on a deeper level. But like most people like want something that just works and where they can see all their friends. They don't really care if it's Facebook or Mastodon, or they don't really, like, that's just the delivery system. Like it's not actually it's not actually important to them how they get that information.
I don't know about you guys, but I have absolutely no problems with Facebook. Myself and Zuggy are like so tight. We even golf together. It's amazing.
Well, yeah, so what you're basically saying, Shane, is, well, we are waiting for somebody like Tata in India, or, you know, a massive carrier who just says, well, you know what, we give you this phone for free with a free allowance if you swap from Facebook to our free chat. And that's possible. I believe that could happen. So this would be one inroad, would just be a big company making a massive offer and saying, well, if you switch to Mastodon, it's going to be free for next 5 years, and you can communicate and send dick pics and whatever for no money at all. And here's a free phone. Oh, by the way, it doesn't do Facebook. Sorry, but we couldn't make it work. That kind of thing could happen, you know. But that's not something we as a community can do. That's a commercial pressure.
China is a complete another kettle of fish. They have something called WeChat that is more pervasive than even Facebook. I mean, if one way to think about it is WeChat is Facebook and WhatsApp and Google Wallet or Amazon Pay or Android Pay or Google Pay or whatever they call it, all wrapped into one. It's essentially saying, okay, I'm currently chatting with this laundrette down the street on their WeChat, but like as if, imagine if in this scenario WeChat is just like WhatsApp, so you're WhatsApping somebody or you're just chatting to somebody who happens to be a business owner, and you say, okay, I'm going to drop my clothes down in order to be dry cleaned down to the laundrette, and then and then you're communicating with that person, they agree to it, then you go down to them, and then it's like, okay, here's $20 for it, and you've never left the app. It's that pervasive over in China, and apparently absolutely everyone, like if you're getting a taxi cab or something like that, you'll be able to pay with WeChat. It's quite pervasive. But yeah, the best way to describe it is if it's Facebook, WhatsApp and Google Pay or Android Pay, whatever, all wrapped into one, is the WeChat over in China.
Yeah, I actually, a friend of a friend lives in China, and he said that it's completely ubiquitous. Just everybody uses it, so it has like insane critical mass. So it's very similar to Facebook in that regard. It's hard to budge these guys. But I had a thought while you guys were speaking that we look at this in terms of like web pages and stuff like that. So could you perhaps see a time when, like, obviously mobile is where everything is going. Everyone wants everything on mobile. So I think that's going to have a huge part to play when it comes to social networks in particular. I know this conversation wasn't actually meant to be about social networks, but whatever. But yeah, it's just, it seems that mobile is going to have a big part to play in that, and you know, we could see, I don't know, something involving blockchain or some shit. I don't know.
Are you talking about the magic silver bullet of blockchain?
Yeah, just add some blockchain to it. It makes it better. Totally. Just blockchain in your dinner. Just your dinner has blockchain. It's
the
great.
Cure for cold, blockchain. Forget Viagra.
We're just going to rename this podcast to Linux Labs Blockchain, and we're going to get sponsors, and we're all going to full-time job.
We call it blockchain. we're gonna do the IPO or ICO or whatever. We're just gonna get a ton of VC money and blockchain it out into the sunshine. Really,
all that delicious VC money.
I'm going to go tomorrow and buy 12 blockchains.
Well, so basically. Sorry, what was your point again? I completely forgot what you were saying, because blockchain just filled my head with blockchain, with blocks and chains of them.
But it's as a deft segue, but we were at a talk quite recently, and it was about blockchain and everything like that, and it was the whole idea of you could have a chat or a communication app based off blockchain. The whole idea is similar to what Shane was saying, is you have a centralized ID, and that can kind of interact with the various chat apps or online accounts or whatever, where your ID is more centralized, and it only dips in and out of providing the data if and when it's needed, but whereas it's more centralized. Again, I'm probably oversimplifying this whole thing and not really explaining it very well.
Yeah, I mean, it was a very interesting talk, but basically, just the scary thing for me is, so you got this blockchain where you have your ID, and maybe it kind of works with your GP's records and your maybe with your driver's license can also be on a blockchain, and your social media profile can be on a blockchain, and then suddenly one day you wake up and your dick size is all over your Facebook. I mean, because blockchain got it the other way around. It's just this, basically what the point I'm trying to make is, this would have to be so easily imagined and used by everybody to be popular. So your social ID, as you call it, no matter if it's on blockchain or if it's on, I don't know, ball chain or whatever, it would have to be, everybody would have to be able to grasp that. Facebook, in a sense, is simple. I go there, I see somebody shit posting about my wife, I tell them to go fuck themselves, and then I show everybody's pictures of my breakfast. That is fuck easy, yeah? Okay, so even Trump can use social media, okay? I know, Shane, you think he's not daft, but I'm not convinced. Now, blockchain is not easy. I've tried to explain first to myself and then to some people last year about how Bitcoin mining worked when it was on the height of popularity, and it's a fucking science. It's not something you can just introduce people to easily, and if you can't introduce them to it easily, they won't use it. You know, if you can't wrap your head around it, it's as good as that. So that's one thing. And second, this would have to be secured, because, as I said, in blockchain everything is in the open. So how are you going to make sure that your most private records that are in the blockchain don't suddenly show up in your most public space?
But it's decentralized. I don't know. People just tend to throw out words associated with blockchain and they think that explains everything. But most people are like, huh? I still don't get it. But anyway,
I don't.
I just wanted to like go back to the Trump thing because I think that needs an explanation. You said yes. I don't think Trump is daft. I don't think he's like just in case anyone thinks I like him, I don't. No, he's a fucking moron, and I hope
we would never accuse you of liking him.
I hope a lot of bad things happen to him. But like, but no, I think what he's doing is very intentional. I think his daft shit that he says on the news constantly is smokescreen. It's his tactic. He's doing it very, very intentionally. And he says shit that's not true all the time. And he knows it's not true. And he knows he's said it before and has said the exact opposite before. He knows that. But he's just giving people too much information, too much shit to focus on.
Well,
to distract them from the fact that he's a complete and utter, like, he's the Antichrist, basically. But anyway,
I thought you wanted to say cunt.
Tangent over.
Well, yeah, you see, and people are still eating that bullshit for dinner, and you would expect them to grasp blockchain. Not sure.
Yeah, but Linux.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that Linux thing. Well, we can steer it a bit away from social networks because they are devil's work, basically. What other things can like? So that means can we find something? So
I think I know what you're going to say. I have a question for you guys. Let's switch it around. Like, is there anything you guys use already on a regular basis that is open source that has replaced the proprietary or the mainstream alternative?
Yeah, Nextcloud.
For you, anyway.
Bcloud, Linux, for God's sake.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, the thing that we all use. That's the thing. And
I was wondering why we were all here.
Yeah. Who are you guys? And some stuff from F-Droid. We've recently set up Collabora for the DLX. So yeah, there are plenty of things, at least for me.
Yeah, and certainly there's pretty much all the things that you've mentioned. I'm kind of a pragmatist when it comes to the whole open source movement. Is ideally I would like to be using all open source software, but if it's shit, I'm not going to use it. Essentially, in other words, if there's a tool that's working for me and it's not it's free or it's paid for, I don't mind using it because it works for me. As if there's an open source alternative that pretty much does 80% or 90% of what I want the paid for proprietary piece of software to do, I'll probably switch over to it because ideally I prefer open source software, but I'm a pragmatist. I use the tool that works for me.
I think I'm pretty much the opposite here. I have massive double standards, and I'm proud of it when it comes to open source stuff. It can be a bit crappy and shit, and I don't mind. But Google, Apple, Amazon, they have no fucking excuse of making something not absolutely perfect with the resources they have. And if they kind of decide that the Google Docs, the spreadsheet might be a bit slow, shit looking, and basically awful to use, especially for Firefox users, but whoever uses Chrome that's pretty much the same shitty experience on Google Docs. So if Google does that, that's just because they know that people are going to use it, and any extra expense they would put on it would just be negative in their bottom line. No, it's not my job to prop up Google's bottom line. So that I cannot abide by. I cannot have paid for or free proprietary software backed by a massive corporation that is just a little bit shit. I can, however, use software that is not perfect, that has got some rough edges, as long as it's done, as long as it's that way, because there's just not the resources for it, and everybody who does that is doing it because they enjoy doing it and they want something. They do it because it is the thing they want to do. They want to develop, they want to make something nice, rather than Google, who just wants to make money, and that's their business, you see. So to me, the most important thing in a software that I use is intent. If it's to make money, then it's better be perfect. If it's done for the love of it, then obviously I approach it from a different point of view.
I think I lean towards Connor's attitude. In principle, though, I agree with you, Mike. I don't like being a revenue source for large company. I don't like being raw data for them to make money from. So I kind of resent that. So I will always try my best to not use the proprietary or the mainstream or the quote unquote free, as in money, software or cloud service. That said, some of it's just so fucking easy to use. like for instance, Google Maps. I use that religiously. I really wish OpenStreetMap was better, and it had a more unified experience, but it doesn't, sadly. I'm not saying OpenStreetMap is bad. It's great, but it's a fantastic project. But it's I don't know. It's the directions, like the if I want to cycle from A to B, how do I get there? Google Maps is just, it's seamless. Same deal with like Google Calendar. I use that extensively in work. So there's just no getting away from it sometimes. But yeah, I just don't like to put all my eggs in one basket, basically.
I have to, I think, turn back or circle back and reverse or whatever, because I might have come across as a massive Stallman, and that's not true. That's not true. I use WhatsApp, and because that's just not getting away from it. And I use Android, for God's sake. That's like one of the most proprietary piece of shit software that can be. Even though people say it's open, it's not. Yeah, I use other things. We are talking on Discord. We use Dropbox Paper, and it's not that I cannot abide by proprietary software. But I have a strong urge not to use it. And in the case of Android, there are no viable alternatives right now, because not without spending a lot of money or having a really poor experience, too poor experience for me. But maybe next year there's going to be something new that I can try, and I will be very happy to give Android a slip and never turn back.
There was a great thing I saw recently. I think I posted this in the Telegram. It was this YouTuber guy, Epos Vox. I think you guys saw this as well. He was complaining about video production on Linux, and he's a pretty hardcore video and audio guy. And he basically went on an 18-minute rant about how he's never going to try video production on Linux again for at least 10 years. Arr. And the video, like, I couldn't disagree with anything he said, to be honest. Like, he was kind of right. Like, video production is pretty shit on Linux. That said, he has a very high-level professional, like, prosumer, as somebody put it. I think that was you, Connor. He has, like, a prosumer kind of workflow. So he needs like 4K editing, he needs color grading, he needs some slightly more than Linux can really offer. Well, not slightly more, quite a lot more. But what I was confused about was that, where did he even get that idea from? Like, who told him that? Like, I'd love to shake them very hard, because they it's really not like, if you want to, like, you guys saw that I've made a couple of videos on Kden Live, one for the Dublin Linux group, and it works fine for just a little project, that you're not being paid for and you're not making money from, but like, but yeah, like that's one hot topic kind of in terms of Linux versus mainstream type software. It's, in some places it's just not ready. It's just, there's the alternative just doesn't exist. Basically, it's there, but it's not up to scratch.
I don't know this for sure, but since you asked where did he get the idea, I think it must have been some of the Linux community is very much or at least some members of the Linux community are very much, you have to use Linux for everything. You should try Linux. Have you tried Linux? Have you done it on Linux? Are you using Linux already? I don't agree with that. I think if it doesn't work for him, he shouldn't be using Linux. But I think he might have been pressured by some part of his audience. And I don't have any facts to, to back this up. But I'd guess that's the case.
It was. I believe. I'll try to recall the conversation that I was having with. I believe what I was saying was, I think there is a bit of a gulf, as in there is the hobbyist of your recording a video of your kids, and you just want like a 10-minute video, and you're just kind of doing some very light editing that can be done on Linux with your Kden Live and your OpenShot and whatever. And he was venturing into more the prosumer, as I was saying, and I think there's a bit of a gulf there. But I believe, and again, I'm willing to be corrected on this, but I believe when you get into really high-end commercial production, as in movie making and stuff like that, and you just want a workstation, I believe it's essentially I think it's like CentOS and Lightworks, and I believe there's like massive Linux workstations, so you actually can video edit on Linux in that regard. But I think you're talking about at the scale of guys who are willing to pay friggin' 20-30 grand on workstations and camera equipment and more, like 100 grand or whatever. When you're talking about at that level where it's Hollywood level production, I believe Linux is in that sense, in that scale. But that guy, Epoch Fox or whatever his name is, I believe he was just growing out of the use of just the hobbyist and going into more, I would need this for production. And I don't believe that there is a compelling argument or a compelling case for Linux video production at that level, as in when you're paying $2,000 or two to $5,000 for your equipment. I don't think Linux is in that space. It's the case of it's in the lower space and it's in the higher space.
Yeah, I think you are right on that one. We just don't have the equivalent of the $3,000 MacBook with Final Cut Pro. But I think we'll get there eventually, because 10 years ago Linux was not a viable alternative, or maybe 15 years ago Linux wasn't a viable alternative for an Office desktop. I know it is. So I think we just need more time, and in the meantime, I mean, if Linux doesn't work for people, they shouldn't be definitely using it.
So in the kind of the consumer space, the mainstream kind of end of things, what do you guys think will become kind of, because we've already seen Linux basically just own cloud. Like it's I don't mean own cloud as in the software obviously, but like it's just the go-to solution for infrastructure, servers and the like, and supercomputers, and enterprise. We've seen the IBM and Red Hat thing. We've seen Microsoft Azure wanks over Linux constantly, and have made a lot of peace offerings. And we're starting to see this. We're starting to see certain industries embracing Linux and open source. What do you think is next? Like, do you see anything kind of more in the, like, just going into PC world and buying something with Linux on it, or that has some sort of open source dimension, as we like to say?
No, I don't see that happening at all, because the whole market for consumers, for like households, is headed away from PCs. Literally, the only people who will end up using computers, in my opinion, are going to be professionals, hobbyists, and gamers. So for these people, Linux is going to become more and more viable option. So we will see more deployments. We will see more Linux on the desktop for gamers with what Steam are doing. We will see more Linux for even the prosumers who want to edit audio or video, with the way the projects are maturing and getting more and more traction. and we will see less and less computers in households. Everything's going to be either like mobile or IoT. In the IoT space, Linux is going to rule because nothing is good enough, small enough and nimble enough. But in the mobile space, I can't see Linux getting hold. Google might, for all we know, actually head away from Linux with their Fuchsia, whatever, however you say it. So
yeah, their Fuchsia OS.
Yeah, so I don't think I don't think you're gonna go to PC World and buy Linux. You might go to PC World and buy a plug or a bulb that has Linux in it.
Yeah, good point. Yeah, I hadn't considered the IoT. It's definitely got to be a winner.
Oh, as far as I'm concerned, there's, I think, and I'm correct in this, in saying this, there's absolutely no competition in IoT. Linux is just one, because it is, Microsoft have tried doing a pared down version of Windows for like hobbyist boards like Raspberry Pis and those kind of ARM based boards, and it's not even able to run like a desktop user interface. Like you can get Ubuntu Mate for the Raspberry Pi, in which you can bring up your LibreOffice on it, and you can bring up your web browser, and you can operate it just like a desktop computer. It won't be as fast as your normal desktop computer, but in terms of the apps and everything is still there. Whereas the Microsoft Windows version that they had was literally as soon as you boot it up with a monitor, it's just really simple, like big buttons as like, do you want to turn on the Bluetooth? Do you want to turn on the Wi-Fi and whatever? You couldn't operate it just like a normal computer, whereas you can on the Raspberry Pi with something like Ubuntu Mate or Raspbian, I think it is, which is essentially the default operating system that you can get for it from the Raspberry Pi Foundation, which is based off Debian.
I think we are kind of all avoiding BSDs here because they could compete with us based off just what they can run on.
Certainly, yeah.
So we are well past the hour mark at this point, I think. So shall we introduce some boners into the equation?
Yeah.
I've always had a massive boner. When we're getting past the hours mark, that's when my boner is developing. So for me, it's something that I've come across quite recently, and I actually heard about it on Linux Unplugged, I believe it was, which is part of the Jupiter Broadcasting podcast suite, whatever, the podcast network, I suppose, is the apt way of putting it. And this is a password manager. So if you're familiar with your 1Passwords, your LastPass, your Dashlane password managers, there's something called Bitwarden. And as far as I can tell, I've pretty much just migrated over straight away because it's as easy to use for me as LastPass. And LastPass for me was really easy to use. I tried Dashlane, and Dashlane was just a pile of shit compared to LastPass. But LastPass is really easy to use, and so I'm not saying I have a very high standard, but it's the case of I had a standard, and for me, Bitwarden was just a drop-in replacement. It was as easy to use as LastPass, and I believe in correct in saying that it is open source, or at least has open source elements to it.
Yeah, I think you are right on that one. I have a boner. Oh, sorry, I slept on it. It's it's been an hour and 15 minutes, and I'm basically just falling asleep because it's been a long day. But yeah, Bitwarden definitely sounds interesting. I think it's one of the examples where you can do something really good, keep it open source, and make money off it. And we just need more of that because. That's the way forward. And if LastPass, what is the company that owns them?
Log me in, I believe, is only LastPass.
Your passwords are like the one of the most important assets for the you want of a douche word. And if LogMeIn decided to shut the service down or hike the prices, then that would be shit. But Bitwarden, if it's open source and you can basically take the data and start and spin your own server for, even if you had to recompile it and build it from GitHub or whatnot, as long as you can do that, that's brilliant. And did you mention that it was like £3 a month cheaper than LastPass?
Well, both of them offer completely free tiers. In other words, for your personal use, you can use it for completely free, both LastPass and Bitwarden. I'm on their webpage at the moment, and it's the case of what you're referring to was family. So in other words, if you want a family account and your mother and the father and you want your kids or whatever, and you want to share like the Netflix password or something to the group, rather than having it all on siloed with just the administrator or something like that. So if you're in that scenario, it's the case of LastPass is like $5 a month, whereas Bitwarden is $1 a month for the exact same service.
I do have a boner. It's something we spoke about already. It's basically just Mycroft, because I just love anything that gets us one step closer to real world Star Trek.
Tea, Earl Grey, hot.
Pretty much. That's the internet. You could probably set up like Mycroft to integrate with your fucking internet kettle or whatever.
Is that an Internet of Things teas made?
I'm sure there is somewhere. Yeah, I mean, you have an IoT coffee machine and toaster and all sorts of things, so why not a tea maker? Sure, why not? But no, basically, like,
tea
all
fighter.
we need now is we just need open source.
Go on, have one.
Go on.
I knew that was going to come up there, especially the episode with the tea maker.
Okay.
So, the gentle splash of the milk turning into a lighter brown to from a darker brown to a lighter brown. Perching an optional Jaffa cake on the side. Anyway, I digress. Yeah, Mycroft is a great product. It's cool. It's shiny. You know, come on, it's a fucking computer that talks. Like, what's not to like? Yeah, so we just need an open source holodeck, and we're sorted. Like,
my boner is a bit less futuristic. It's something I knew a long time existed, but I kind of avoided it all the time. It's oooh, the command line utility for like editing. I don't actually know what it fucking even does. All I know is that I was writing a Python script to sift through some massive amount of data, and my Python is a bit junky. And then I thought, well, it was taking an hour to do stuff, and I was thinking, oh, surely somebody must have had similar problem before. So what do I do? I looked online and I saw that what I was trying to achieve is about 5 or 6 lines of Python that was about to take about 8 hours. I could do in about 5 minutes with a line of oooh. So, well, cheers to the good old trusty command line utilities, because it worked flawlessly. I always want, and I actually am currently reading a book to that effect. I always want to get really into these old GNU or otherwise command line utilities, because they are massively useful when you are working with text, and there's too much text for your normal tools to handle, and they are also extremely cool, the way they work, the way you can put them together, and as I said, oooh is amazing, and I would really like to get into it. But that said, there is a really thick O'Reilly textbook just on using oooh and sed, so I'm not sure how much of it I can master.
Okay, I think we've all passed our bedtime, so I think it's time for us to wrap this motherfucker up, as Mike might say. Yeah, you tend to curse a lot.
No, shut the fuck up.
It's so uncouth. Yeah, so Linux lads and all that shite.
One thing I will say is, as a strong counterpoint to all our discussion about, social networks should be free and everything. By the way, we are on Twitter, we are on Facebook.
Find us on Facebook.
Oh yeah,
we're sellouts.
Yes, I was thinking that the other day. We should make a more of an effort to give people our contact details at the end. So there's linuxlads.com/telegram. Do I have that right?
Yeah, I think you do.
Yep.
Damn right I do.
If it's not right, just look in the show notes and click the link that will be in the show notes. We'll figure it out.
Or just Google it, you lazy cunt.
Don't you mean duck go it?
Yeah.
Yeah, we have our DublinLinux.org. Yeah, go there too. But, linuxlads.com/telegram. We have show@linuxlads.com. We are on the Facebook Evil Empire, whatever you want to call it. We are on Mastodon. Mm-hmm. So lots of freedom. I think what else are we on?
I think we're on Matrix as well.
Yeah.
Yes. Which I have no idea how to use. So that's great.
Well, it's
just like the real Matrix.
Yeah, you've taken the blue pill.
But yeah, I think this has been quite a giddy, sleep-deprived episode. So I think we're going to wrap it up. So, Mike, say goodbye.
Cheers, bitches.
Connor, say something.
Goodbye.
That was very sexy. I've been Shane. We have been the Linux Lads. See ya.